Hey guys, welcome back to my another video. This video is going to be about Formik. So now let me go to the Formik website directly to show you guys. So what is a Formik, right? So Formik is basically a library that is you can use in React applications and to make our form easy because the form will give a lot of functionality which we can implement and which will make when we create our form labels then we get to use it and we can make our form easily using the Formik. So that's what it's Formik is about. So it's used by a lot of big companies, and this is a little code snippet that also shows us that how we can implement easily. If you I submit here, then yep, it doesn't give any other values here. But if I put it in the data and if I submit, of course, oh, it's the email address. So if I put data here, then yeah, we could able to submit, and here it is. And this is a little snippet of code, okay? So if I go and get started, guys, and here is a on tutorials part here. It has a bunch of tutorials. It shows how we can use our Formik. This is pretty cool. I checked this out. It's pretty cool. You guys can also check this out if you guys like. And on this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how we can use a basics of the Formics, right? Using this use Formik, and it also with using a use Formik, there is another way which we can implement the Formik as well without using a use Formik by using a different way. But for this one, I'm going to show you how we can use a use Formik way. All right, using a hook way. So let's get started. So this is my form which I created using a Bootstrap, and I just created a form because it doesn't take them because I don't want to waste any time creating a forms labels. So I just create a form. So I'm just going to show you guys code here. So this is my code here, and if I go to the package.json, so this is a package a form it need to be installed to use it, of course. If I go in app.js, my app.js has the Bootstrap, a little bit of container stuff, the code, and a little image, and this is the order form right here. This is the main form, which I have it here, and this is my the order form, and it's straight Bootstrap, nothing else. I'm just putting getting the component from the Bootstrap and pasting it here. That's all. All right, so now let's implement this form to our forming. All right, so the first thing what I'm going to do is on this one here, all the way on the bottom here, the first thing is not all the way in bottom, in the front here, what I'm going to use is of course the use forming. All right, so there is a functions called use formic which we can use it, and here we will get a formic. Okay, so once we get the formic here, so if I go in tutorials here and if I go to the use formic, then yep. And here, when we use a use formic, and here inside the use formic, we will get a couple of the functions we could implement it. So we can implement the initial value. So what is the initial value is basically what are the field that is on your form label. All right, if you are in a form here, then what are the field that need to be implemented? That is it. Basically, validate is basically what will happen when we it does the validation on it. It just says validate, so it does the validation. And on submit, whenever on submit will happen, then this will trigger. That's all. So I'm going to implement the same thing inside in our application as well. Looks like it's already complained. It's already complained because I didn't put anything inside it, I guess. So if I go it here, it does the work, but it doesn't know where is the validate is on because if I go in this tutorial right here, the validate is sitting right here on top. So I'll just copy this validate, or no need to be copied. I'll create another one called validate here. Okay, and value will also give you the values here, of course, the values, and this is a validate. All right, that's it. So once I validate, everything looks good. I need to refresh this. Okay, everything looks good here in my form level and nothing will happen. Okay, the first thing what we do is on this, when we get this formic, I'll just make this big, a little bit big. When you get this formic, this is my form level right here. My form level has a text input, checkbox, and radio and text area all the way in the bottom. Okay, so this is the form. So whenever our form is on submit, so basically this is a standard JavaScript thing. So whenever it's on submit, then we'll provide this on a handle submit. So now handle submit will take care of it. Okay. So now our form is bind with the formic, but it doesn't bind it. The formic is not binding with all the input label, which we need to bind it. Okay. So this is the first input which we can bind it. So two ways to bind this. I'm going to show you both ways. So if I go into formic here, so if I go, we can implement on change, on blur, and values, and we need to exactly provide like this kind of values here. Of course, the type is also needed, and name is very important, and we need this all of it. Okay, this is all of it. We need to bind it here. Of course, we have a type already here. Why the type is name, I'm not sure. I'm just going to remove it. The type is text, the first name. Instead of first name, I think we have a name. So if I go in here, okay, I need to change this as well. I forgot about this, of course. So when I go in my form level, name, food, drink, and a special instruction. That with what we have. So what we do, name, food, and food is basically a checkbox. So if it's checkbox, then we need to use as a array. And if it's a drink, it's a radio, so we don't need to use it. And another one is special instruction. Okay, so this is a special instruction right here. So this is what we use for forming name, food, drink, and special instruction. So look, everything looks good so far here. And here what we use is we use a name here instead of first name. So we use these values and let's see how this is binding or not. To see a binding or not, what we can do is Formik will give us something called values and we can print the values here. So if I do here JSON dot stringify Formik dot null dot true, then we can print the values here in a good formatted way. Here in all the way in the bottom, which we can see, right? In Formik also we will see our values, sorry. The values is the important one. Here on the bottom, we see the first name, last name, and email. But if I go all the way down up, and it's not a first name, last name, and email, it should be a name, food, drink, and special instruction, something like this. So now let me see what's going on. If I refresh it, okay, now it's to show me the name, food, drink, and special instruction. All right. So if I change something in name, yep, it does change already. It does change already, guys. So if I put my name here, it does change already. Look, it does it. It does the work already. So what we did is basically we just put these three values, right? And name also, of course. And instead of this, we don't need to put directly, I mean, we don't need to put this all this on change even whenever it's on change, whenever it's on blur, right? When the values is this, we don't need to put this. There is another way which we can implement it. The another way is uh we what we can do get the spread operator using the formic get field props, and in the props we could able to get the name, and we will when we use the spread operator using this function here, then it already bring this on change, on blur, and the value stuff, so we don't need to put this at all. So once I if I didn't put this at all, then still it does work. See, if I refresh it, yep, still it does work. The name is has been changed, so we don't need to put that guy. But this will only work on, I believe, on select, input, and text area. It will not work on the checkbox stuff. So the next step is what we need to do is when we check this what kind of food I want, then I need to bind this food here in this array as well. So how are we gonna do it? So basically, what we're gonna do is we need that the on change and unblur. We don't need unblur. So what we do, I'll just type it instead of copy. Let me type something on change. Whenever the form will on change, then it will do formic, and it has a function called on change. So it's called on change. So on input type, what we have is we don't have a name, so we need to provide the what is the name of this is. So this is going to be food, okay? And we also need to provide the value. What is the value of this going to be when the user will select it? So this will go become a dumpling, okay? So we have three things here. So what we can do is on three things we have a dumpling. So here instead of dumpling, what we do is we put a burger here. All right. So now we have a. So if I pick a dumpling, yep, it doesn't work. So if I refresh here, let me see one more time. Nope, it doesn't work. I think I missed something here. So let me see what I missed it. Oh, the reason it doesn't work is it's not on change. It should be handle change. All right. So if I do a handle change, now it work. It will put in an array here in the bottom here. If I put a dumpling, it does put it. If I put a burger, then it does put it, right? Yeah, it will put it in my array. And in a drink section here, in a radio button, it doesn't work. So now let me put that in here as well. And if I do an unchange on this radio button on the bottom, so unchange will be a forming handle change here. And what we do is on name and the value, right? And in the name, it should be a drink here, and the value would be the drink, which is, or maybe we'll do a water, And on the bottom here, what we do is we will do here a mango juice, and we will set here a mango. And now let's see if it does the work or not. If I pick the water is here. If I pick a mango juice, mango is come here. Looks good so far. The last step is we need to bind with the special instruction. And the way is to bind is we don't have to use on chains and everything like that. We can literally use the same function which I use it here. Get props field. It will copy the all this on chains and on blur stuff which we needed for the validation purpose. Of course, on blur is for validation. On change is to changing a data. So here at the end, instead of using the names here, we need to use a special instruction which I provided on the top. So I'll just put this here, a special instruction. So now if I refresh it, and if I put something, the special instruction will change it. If I do mango, mango, water, water, and the food is here, name, everything is binding. Now if I submit, then I will see my values as well here, because on submit function on the top, it has a alert here. It put the alert and it print this the JSON value which we have. So now let's do a validation. So now for a validation one, let's assume that we need to provide our name is mandatory. So to make this as a mandatory, what we need to do, we have a validate here. So in a valid, what we can do is we have a error here. We can create a error object here, and if the values dot the values we will get the name of it. So first thing is a name. If the name is empty, right? If we don't have a name is empty, then we can say that on error we can say the name is required. So in this empty object we will create a property called name, and in the name what we do is the name is required, and we can return this error. Don't forget to return. If we didn't return, it doesn't work. So now if I submit, then submit will not happen because we need to provide this. But we will not see any message here such as like this is required stuff. So for that one, what we need to do is we need to go on the bottom here, and now here we need to print this error. To print the error, let me go in the bootstrap here, something called validate. I will just use the bootstrap validation thing like this. To use this one, what it really does, it throws something called in uh, invalid feedback, right? In invalid feedback, it throw it the class. And to use the invalid feedback, I think in the form level also we need to provide is invalid function. So to do that, if I submit now, it doesn't work. But if I put here is invalid, then we might see, yep, we might see this one. So now we need to make this as dynamic because we need to make a dynamic. What we do is we are still already using a Formik, of course. So in a Formik, what we can do is we can get the values, right? So in the values we can easily can get, but if a Formik is a error, right? If the Formik has a errors, and if the Formik is touch, Formik, sorry, the Formik should go for a. Let me double check here for validation. Formik that error dot first name. That was it. That was it. Formik that error dot actually the name, and Formik dot touch dot name. If both is true, right? If has error and with touch, then we will not show the error. Otherwise, we will not show the error. So the error is going to be from, of course, the Formik dot error dot first name. Actually, the name. So what we do is we don't need this. We don't need this. Formik dot error dot name. Okay. So once we have this, so we need to use exactly the same one. This validation on the class here as well, class name as well. There are a couple of ways to use it. Let me do this easy way. If it's touch, then return this, right? The same thing. The first is a form control, and the second one is is valid. If it's valid, now I need to use exact same thing here. like this. Okay, so now I don't have anything. If I click it, oh, is invalid. I believe it's invalid, not valid. Yep. So now if I submit it, if I place the order, then it says that we need to put these values. If I hover it, if I go back, then it just stays that. But if I put the values and if I click it, then it does submit it because this is not a required field. That's why. But we can make this as required field as well. To do it, basically on our validate function here, when that the food is empty, then we can say the food is required. Okay. Another one we can make the drink is empty, then the drink is required. I mean, we can do a much more validations, right? The character reading, length of the character, and we can also use regex for more validations we could able to implement on this function. Okay, so we have this invalid already. Looks good. So now we need to use for this checkbox. For to checkbox, we need to implement this. So I'll just put this is invalid here, right? And instead of the name, it should be food, right? If the food is invalid, then we will see this. And on the class name, I'm not sure in the class name we could able to use it or not. Let me check. So if I submit, yep, the drink is required. It says the drink. It shouldn't be a drink there because I put a name here instead of food, and here should be a drink. Okay. So now it's updating a property. So if I do it, if I put it, if I click, doesn't work because we need to provide this drink as well now, both of it, drink and the food. So in a food, I already created this invalid, but we need to use, I think is invalid here as well. So let me check. Yep, if we use is invalid, then we will see this kind of message, which is pretty cool. Then we'll just specifically say that, okay, the checkbox need to be checked. So for this one, we're going to use exact the same for class name. So for a bootstrap class name here for checkbox, and don't worry about the following this code stuff. I'm going to put this code, guys, on the GitHub so you can easily download it. All right. So if I do this, then this is fine. So if I refresh, it should be a form check input, not a form control. Sorry, it should be form check input. So if I submit now, okay, name is required. If I submit, then oh, it says food is required. The validation is not working somehow. The validation is working, but in the bootstrap class is not working. If errors has a food and touch has a food. Oh, I just want to make sure that this guy has something or not. It should have it. I believe. Yeah, I think it should throw the error. Let me see. No, it doesn't throw the error on a food. Let me check on validate here. On validate here, if the food. Oh, so maybe we can say if the length is 0, then we say the food is required. So if I click it, so if I refresh, if I click it, yep, we need to check as a length is 0 for the select button. All right, for validations. So once we do this, so now this is fine. Of course, this doesn't print. This doesn't print. So you know what? I'll just put as a div here. Food is required. We can also use another one called text danger, like this. Good so far. So if I refresh, yep, doesn't work. If I place, then yep, the burger is required. And dumpling also, the problem on dumpling is we didn't put a class name on dumpling. So if I go down here, oh no, sorry, where is it? Dumpling is here in the top here. Then we use a class name here. Just change this as a error on food. Yes, that's right. So now this, we don't need this. So now if I do it, then it will show up here as well. So if I refresh, yep, if I put it here, it does. If I check it, it does check it. Yep.
place order. Here it is. If I didn't put it this guy, yep, it already tells that food is required. If I put it, the food is required will disappear. Pretty cool, guys. So I also put the validation on drink, but it's exactly the same one that what we're using on this one, right? But except using the length, we can use directly like this.
All right, guys. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope you guys like my video, and if you guys learned something new, please do subscribe and like my channel. And I'm gonna put this code and this the form also in all everything all the code in the GitHub. I hope you guys like it, and thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.